buildings as the chemicals they take us higher. The night's young and it's just begun as she puts her hand in mine. We wanna chase the night, wanna dance to the light, pull stars from the sky, just two hearts running wild. Never sleep, never stop, as we shout from the top. We're gonna be two hearts running wild. Now the morning is the afternoon, we lay awake in bed. Laugh so loud as the hours pass, we're gonna do it all again. We wanna chase the night, wanna dance to the light, pull stars from the sky, just two hearts running wild. Never sleep, never stop, as we shout from the top. We're gonna be, we're gonna be two hearts running wild.
Welcome to another edition of the Caribbean Cricket Show here on West Indies Cricket Development Academy YouTube channel. As you can see on your screen that the West Indies have announced their squad, 15-man squad. 14 players are here. It's a 15-man squad for the upcoming test series, 2-match test series against South Africa, and that starts on the 7th of August 2024 there at the Queen's Park Oval in Trinidad and Tobago. That match gets on at 10 a.m. Eastern Caribbean time, and we'll be happy to watch that match. It starts at 9 a.m. Jamaican time. The test match squad for you is Captain Craig Brathwaite, Vice Captain Joshua De Silva, Alec Atenis, Casey Carty, Brian Charles, and Justin Greaves, Jason Older, Kevin Hodge, Tevin Imlach, Shamar Joseph, Michaela Louis, Goodish Kish Mooti, Kimar Roach returning, and Jaden Seals. Jamel Warkan is at the bottom and he makes 15. We don't know what he has done to get into this team, but I have on camera with me here is Mr. Dennis Heath. He's recently nominated and slated to be inducted come October 5th in the Cricket Hall of Fame. He, along with Hall of Famer John Melbourne and also the Honorary Secretary of the Cricket Hall of Fame, Mr. Dale Brown, and me, your host, Junior Codlin, will be diving into this squad and dissecting it for you and explaining the sense behind this selection or the lack thereof. Thank you again for joining and welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Show. Mr. Heath, good afternoon to you and thank you for joining. Your opening thoughts first on the squad and then a general greetings.
Yes, well, good afternoon to you, Mr. Codling, and to the fellow panelists. And also, we welcome visitors and listeners to this West Indies Cricket Development Academy. Thank you all once again for joining us. The squad has recently been announced or released, but I fail to see that there are any changes, meaningful changes. The only meaningful change, perhaps, that we previously decided on in our conversations is that Alzarri Joseph needed to be rested And I'm happy to see that he is being rested, but obviously in his place comes Kemar Roach. So the next decision is which other player will be replaced. And again, that's a foregone conclusion. Kirk McKenzie will be replaced. Who will they bring? Will they bring Imlach, Carty, or Greaves? The question is still to be decided. My first take would be that Imlach should be given the opportunity, and I know Carty and Greaves are knocking on the door, but again, I would prefer to see Imlach in for McKenzie, and quite frankly, it's disturbing to me that we are still pushing the envelope by including Jason Holder. He needs to be rested as well, and an opportunity be given to someone else, preferably, Greaves or Carty, and bring Charles. Brian Charles have been included, and I'm at a loss because I have yet to see much of Brian Charles, so I cannot comment much about him because he sort of came out of the blue as far as I'm concerned. But that's it for now from me. I'll see what my other fellow panelists have to say on the matter.
Go ahead, Mr. Brown, Honorary Secretary of the Hall of Fame.
Yes, greetings everyone. Wonderful again to be here and contributing to this, what I expect to be a wonderful and great discussion. The squad, the big news out of that squad really is that Brian Charles would be included, and Charles took the 5th highest amount of wickets in our recent 4-day competition. The persons ahead of him as far as light bowlers would be Ned and Raheem Cornwall. I don't have a problem with Charles, being included in this squad as an off spinner. He's mature at 29 years old, and he's a former under-19 player. So as I said, not much of a problem with him. Warwick may raise a few eyebrows, but only one person, which is Joshua Bishop, took more wickets than him in the just concluded competition, but he took the most 5 fours in the entire competition. And with his experience, don't have a problem with him getting a look in there. Doesn't mean he's going to play, but at least he's in the squad. And he's a similar bowler to Moti, so I don't expect him to actually play, but be there as cover for Moti perhaps. So they went with Warwick, who's experienced at the test level, and Charles, who doesn't have any experience there at all. And as I said, that combination, left arm leg spinner, orthodox leg spinner, with the right arm off break bowler, not a problem. Very happy to see that Mr. Kirk McKenzie has finally been excluded from the team, and Casey Carty, as a specialist batsman, as a man who bats at number 3, is the most likely person to replace him. If you're talking about team balance and looking at where people bat and how it would affect the batting lineup. I would expect Greaves to be there again because it would mean moving everybody up, and putting Greaves at number 5 is not something that would, to me, that is enticing. I would rather, if it comes down to that, to see Imlach get a shot there as a, if you're not going to play Casey Carty. So Carty would be my first selection there. Again, although we're much maligned, we see that Carty is a former under-19 player moving on up. Even Greaves is a former under-19 player, Although he's 30 years old now and it has taken him a long time. He has what, 2 test matches under his belt. But he's there, and I don't see him as a top order batsman of that ilk. I would have loved to see them give Springer a chance because he's similar to Holder in ability right now, and he's an almost like for like player. But again, they are going to keep pressing with Holder as opposed to bringing in someone inexperienced, because I believe you need the experience to help to guide the inexperienced players. So you have to make sure you have that mix there. And I hope that they think outside the box and follow what happened in the early 80s, 40-something years ago, when they played Jeffrey Dujon, the Jamaican batsman, wicketkeeper, but they played him alongside David Murray, who was also the #1 keeper at the time. And I would love to see something similar happen with Imlach, where he plays with the #1 keeper, that's the Silva, and he goes into the team as a specialist batsman. But if they go with Carty ahead of him, I don't have a problem with that. That's it for me now.
Hall of Famer John Melbourne.
Well, thank you so much, Junior, for inviting me once more to be a part of the West Indies Cricket Development Academy review before the first test that begins next week, Wednesday, against South Africa. And a very good afternoon to our listeners, to the panel. Good afternoon, good morning if you're listening somewhere else, or good night. I was going to mention, first of all, about because Brian Charles got 31, as Dale so aptly put it, but he got 31 wickets in the recent 4-day West Indies regional, and he has 150 wickets in 44 first-class matches. So he has probably been given a chance now. I don't know if he will be in the starting 11, but certainly he has been included in the squad based on the results that he has produced. I didn't hear anyone mention that we still have left out Ruston Chase and Shea Hope out of this squad, and I thought they would have been in this squad. I am happy to see Casey Carty in the squad. They give him a chance, and he'll probably, I would have him batting, I think Alec Athanaze and Casey Carty are the two players that I think should be we should be looking at them to see if they really have the goods. So they have to be playing in order to determine their worth. Yes, I am kind of surprised to see Jason Holder back in the team. I guess he knows the Guzum, but he's back in the team. You might also, guys, remember in earlier discussions, I mentioned a couple of times with Craig Brathwaite seemed to be consulting more with Joshua De Silva than he did with Alzarri Joseph. And I'm kind of surprised that now they have rested Alzarri Joseph, so they claim, and given the vice captaincy to Joshua De Silva. If my memory serves, and I think Dale probably would have a better spin on this, but I remember the days of Sir Garfield Sobers, who played cricket all over the world. I never hear Sir Garfield Sobers being rested because he played cricket in New Zealand, in Australia, in India, in England, and when the West Indies called him, he was playing in the West Indies. So, this thing about resting, and some time ago, the same thing happened with Jason Holder. Is it that they're not conditioning themselves off season to be able to take up the mantle when they are called? I don't know, but I can't see why Alzarri Joseph need resting. Other than he's probably not bowling well. But we shall see what happens in this first test again that begins at Queen's Park Oval next week, Wednesday, August 7th. And hopefully, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. And yes, Jomel Warrican, the leading wicket taker in the last regional. I'm personally not happy to see him because he has his average is not that great as a bowler. I prefer to see Ashmead Ned actually given a chance in the squad. But, you know, the selectors are the selectors and they, I guess, have a better upfront view of the players or assessment, and they have selected the squad. So we'll see what happens. Back to you, Junior.
Thank you, Hall of Famer John Melbourne. Just a note from the West Indies Director of Cricket, Miles Bascom, um, expressed confidence in the squad ability to deliver strong performance. We are confident about the team selected for this important series against South Africa. The selection process for this squad was led by our head coach Andre Coley, pending the implementation of new selection process which be rolled out in the coming days and articulated publicly shortly. This squad reflects a thorough elevation of our players' recent performance and suitability for the conditions we anticipate. We are confident that this team is well balanced and capable of competing at the highest level. And while I read what the head coach said, I will once again bring up on screen the squad for the viewers. The head coach, Andre Coley, stated the squad we have chosen for this series is a balanced mix of experience and youth, strategically selected to maximize our performance in the conditions of Trinidad and Guyana. We have decided to rest our vice captain Alzarri Joseph for this series. Alzarri has a considerable workload recently, and this break will allow him to recuperate and return to peak performance. Kevin Sinclair is presently recovering from an injury, and we do know that injury that his forearm was broken by a nasty delivery from the England fast bowler Mark
Wood.
maybe returning some of what we did to them in years gone by. Very interesting to read to you viewers the management unit of head coach Andre Coley, team manager Roy Lewis, assistant coach and former director, the one who is responsible for selecting Andre Coley as coach, now working underneath him. We have never seen this in any other organization. And if the president, Dr. Shallow, is watching and this criticism, constructive criticism, will prevent you from joining us, sir, then be my guest because we must point out this chaka chaka foolishness that is happening in our cricket. Jimmy Adams, assistant coach, Roy Griffiths, assistant coach, Sean Tate, assistant coach, and physiotherapist, Dr. Dennis Bryan, strength and conditioning coach, Ronald Rogers, team massages, Philbert Allen, and team analyst, Avishkesh Sorata and that's the full list of so the first match start from the 7th to 11, and that's August at the Queen's Park Oval in Trinidad and Tobago, and then from the 15th to the 18th the second test at the National Stadium there in Guyana, and that is at the George that's located in Georgetown, and we have a lot of viewers from Guyana watching us, over 2,000 plus of them located in the Georgetown area. And we encourage you that when you go at the stadium, write something about West Indies Cricket Development Academy. And once the camera run across you, then you show it in advancing this academy a lot more. When you look at that team, Mr. Eat, and the inclusion really of Jamel Warrican, but the exclusion of Kirk McKenzie that we first called for on this show. But as the coach made mention of some players in Alzarri Joseph and Kevin Sinclair there, and maybe when Kevin Sinclair return, Warrican will be out. But how baffling it is and how much of a damage will it do to the young man Kirk McKenzie being discarded without saying that they're giving him time to go back and correct the deficiencies that was highlighted in England and in his short career so far. Remember, he started right here at the Queen's Park Oval against India just a year back.
Well, it should certainly not be damaging for Mackenzie. This should be a time for him to go back to the nets and figure out where he has gone wrong over the last 2 or 3 seasons. What is it that caused his lack of productions? Because production is what gets you noticed. And obviously, if he's not producing, he's not going to be noticed. And at this point, let me offer an apology for Brian Charles because I'd looked at the initials and not recognized that I was looking at the same player. Yes, certainly, as pointed out, he's had a sterling record of 31 wickets in the last 23-24 season. So yes, I can see that he is very worthy of a place in the squad, and quite frankly, he probably should be having a place in the team because this is time for West Indies to start rebuilding and stop being afraid to take the chance. Jason Holder should be rested. I say it again. We have the likes of Brian Charles and we have Springer and others who are being pushed to the front and showing their development, and they need to be given the opportunity. I'm sorry to see that Mackenzie has gone, but it's in his hands, and he has to learn to correct the deficiencies that he has displayed in matches, having been given the opportunity, and then this should give him the opportunity to fight for his place. Now, Mr. Melba mentioned that he didn't hear of players, for example, Gary Sobers being rested in previous years. But what Mr. Melba should recognize and accept is that today's IPL-style T20 matches does take a great deal out of players, the amount that they're being asked to contribute and how they worked from day to day. In matches past, test matches mainly, our players did not have to throw themselves around the ground the way I see T20 players do these days. And so I think that, yes, it may not have been necessary back then, but it is certainly required today that they take a break. Chase and Hope, as referenced earlier, was disappointed from Mr. Melba's point of view that they're not mentioned. However, I've heard the president of Cricket West Indies in another forum ask that question about these two players, and we were told by him that these players in the past have expressed a willingness, or is it a preference, to not be considered for the Test match series. Maybe this is a situation. This is a situation where we can try to persuade them by virtue of their contributions that they should be thinking more about coming forward for the West Indies when the West Indies need them. Thank you, Mr. Cudley.
Absolutely. Before I say South Africa now at the moment is at 368 for the last of two. wickets. Aiden Makram retiring hurt, and the captain notable is not there. Maybe retired hurt as well. But South Africa on day 3 of the ongoing 4-day match between them and the West Indies Championship 11 is at 368 for the last of 368 for the last of 4 effectively, but they are hammering the West Indies in that game there. The question of Raston Chase and Shea Hope, we have mentioned it repeatedly that these players are not interested in Test cricket, and no kind of persuasion, we believe, will get them interested. We just have to nurture and work with those that are interested in playing Test cricket for a great nation, and give them all that it takes to be successful at the highest level. As we look on the team that is now operating against South Africa in those 4-day game, Casey Carty coming in, one that we predicted while the team was in England, that he would replace Kirk McKenzie, and we do call for him to replace Kirk McKenzie. But the volume of runs that he gets at the position that he bats in a recently concluded 4-day championship outweigh that of Tevin Imlach, and despite Imlach being in and around the team for the last 2 series now, would you, based on Casey Carty pureness as a pure batter and his level of production in the 4-day championship, would you have him play over Tevin Imlach in this starting 11 against South Africa come next week, Wednesday, John Melbourne?
Thanks again, Junior. Yes, well, I have always wanted to see Casey Carty in the West Indies 11. And while in the recent regional tournament, their runs were, I think it's 11 runs separated them. With Carty getting 496 runs and Imlach getting 485. So in terms of runs, there's not much of a difference there. However, I guess I have a preference for Casey Carty being in the starting 11. I have always, as a youngster one, we seem to have a problem with pushing our youngsters forward and working on their development. And I want to see Carty under the gun to see how good he is, because he suggests to me that he's a good little batsman, and so he has to be in the fire in order to either develop or fall by the wayside. But I'd really love to see him getting the chance to show just how good he is, and if he can be a staple in the West Indies Test 11. Back to you, Junior.
Absolutely. Mr. Brown, would you go for Casey Carty over? We know Justin Greaves was picked because Jason Holder had declined selection and he was brought in. He didn't do too bad there in Australia, but he's in the squad. But him being in the squad doesn't mean that he will be in the 11. That batting position that Kirk McKenzie left, we believe it's a fight between Tevin Imlach and Casey Carty. Who would you go with?
Brown's muted.
Bill,
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. As I said before, I wouldn't have a problem with either of them. However, if we're talking about youth, they're both the same age. They're both 27 years old. And Imlak has a more penchant for making bigger scores. He will more score you a century, while Carty will more give you a 50 and a 60. And that is borne out by their records. As John pointed out before, there's only 11 runs separating them. And it's interesting that Imlak scored his runs at an average of 53, while Carty scored his runs at an average of 41. So numbers wise, they are basically inseparable. I think that, again, Carty is more of a number 3 batsman, whereas Imlak is a more number 5, number 6. If Imlak plays, it would mean that the Athenians would have to move up, and Hodge, everybody would have to move up one place for Imlak to play. If they go with Carthy, then Carthy can just fit in to the number 3 slot, and everybody else remains where they were before. So that choice. And I forgot to mention this before. In the selection of the squad, what bothers me, Mr. Codlin and panelists, is that once again, you find space for 9 members of your team unit, and you do not find space for a 10th one, which would be a sports psychologist, to help these youngsters or these players prepare for these games. Almost every college team, every national team, international team, professional teams, they employ a sports psychologist. And I'm not going to say necessarily back for any particular one, but I think it is more worrisome that the West Indies or Cricket West Indies continue to err in this manner and don't follow what, we follow everything else, but we don't follow the most important thing. Whether it's Cricket Australia, India, England, Pakistan, they have a sports psychologist traveling with their team. Why don't we see the need for that individual, that profession? So I'll use a little bit of my time to bring that in. And so that's it for me for now. Hope I answered the question with Carty, pertaining to Carty and Imlak.
Absolutely. Kimar Roach, walk back in the 11 for you, Mr. Eat.
Yes, on the basis of his past production and contribution to West Indies cricket, yes, we should certainly give Kimar Roach that opportunity to come back. I have absolutely no problem with that. But one point that I wanted to follow up on is the question of batting positions. I've asked myself, why is it that we are so dogmatic in saying we cannot bat a certain player at number 4 because he's used to batting down at number 6? It makes no sense to me, because in a match, if you're batting at number 6 and a player and the early order batters have been dismissed, you're struggling at 24 4 or 3, it means that that batter is essentially from number 6 coming to bat at an earlier position, basically, because it may be 6, but he's still facing those bowlers earlier on. So I don't think that we should be so dogmatic in saying we can't bat a certain player, use a certain player in one position simply because he traditionally bats at, say, number 6. We have to look at how much he can contribute wherever he is. And after all, he's achieved a position in the team on the basis of his production and his abilities. So it should be clear that wherever he bats, he's expected to produce. So let's dispense with this because he bats traditionally at number 6. We cannot move him up to bat at number 4. I think that's a misnomer, and this is cricket, and these guys are very talented and they have a lot of experience. So I would want to dispel that myth that because he bats in his regular spot at 6, he cannot be moved up to number 4. Back to you, Mr. Codley.
Mr. Melbourne, you want to touch on that a little? Your thoughts on that?
Before I touch on that, I just want to follow up on something that Dale mentioned about a psychologist in the management team. And the question is, I know Jimmy Adams is a batting coach, but what is Ryan Griffith and Sean Tate as assistant coaches? What are their duties?
Coach. Tate is effectively the bowling coach.
Who? Tate? So what is Griffith?
No, we don't know that, but we know Sean Tate is the bowling coach.
Oh, okay. I kind of disagree with Dennis there. Because there are some cricketers who can bat well in the middle. Put them up in the order to bat, they don't do as well. It's like some people can go out there and open the batting. That's what they do. And they want to face the first ball. And some batsmen just can't, just don't do as well, although they can bat as openers. And I don't know, it might just be a mentality in cricket. Or maybe as Mike, we might want to put it a mind game, but they're just cricketers. Some, you cannot put them to bat at number 3. It's just not, for instance, you had a Rohan Kanai batting at number 3, and Viv Richards. But look at your Kyle Mayers. Kyle Mayers is not a number 3 batsman. And talking about Kyle Mayers, he's not even selected for the series. I suppose he's probably another one I don't know who doesn't want to play Test cricket. But no, batsmen, not everybody can bat in the top order. They just can't. They do better in the middle, lower order. And that's my take on it, Junior.
Absolutely. Mr. Brown and Mr. Heath, any closing arguments as we wrap up today? We'll be back Tuesday evening or around Tuesday morning to preview the first test match, and that's against South Africa at the Queen's Park Oval. We just met today now to review the squad that will take on South Africa, but we'll have a more in-depth discussion next week, Tuesday morning, as we preview the game against South Africa, the first test. We'll also have for the days for you our review show of what happens in the day, so keep it locked to this channel and we will provide you all the information as it regards to West Indies taking on South Africa in this very, very important World Test Championship cycle. Mr. Brown, your closing thoughts, followed by Mr. Heath.
Yes, thank you again. Again, maybe I should have said what I said before for the closing thoughts in regards to the sports psychologist, and I just cannot express my disappointment enough. And I would like to see journalists speak on that and ask them why are you resistant to employing a sports psychologist? And you have these 10 persons or 9 persons in the back room, and no one is there to help these players prepare. And just to add a little bit to what John said, if you look throughout the history of cricket, you take, for example, Shivnarayan Chandapal. You put him to bat at number 3, he does not make any runs. You put him to bat at number 6 or number 5, he will make runs. Garfield Sobers, whether or not he's opening, batting at number 3, wherever, up, down through his career, not a problem. But in today's world, you need someone to guide these players, and if you're going to play them out of position, you better have a sports psychologist there to work with them, because their mind is already set that I'm not going to go in and bat until 4 wickets go down, or whatever the case might be. So if you don't have all those things in place, then you can't even speak about it. But you need a sports psychologist, and with Alzarri Joseph, it's interesting that he's been rested, because if Roach bowls well, if Seals bowls well, and if Shamar Joseph bowls well, then we'll see how much of a rest he will be getting.
Very, very good note that is, Mr. Heath.
Yes, I welcome the addition of those Greaves, Carty, Charles, and Imlach. However, the question is, how many of those 4 players will make the test team next, when the first test comes around? I'm disappointed that we haven't, West Indies is so fixated on the way they develop the team that they use, that they still find it necessary to include Holder rather than bringing in somebody new. And an idea, if you can rest the vice captain, Alzarri Joseph, why not rest Brathwaite as well and give somebody else a new, not necessarily sacking him, although
But they would say to you that Alzarri Joseph played 3 format of the game, and the amount of games that we had and the volume of workload, but we hardly play any test match. The last one was against Australia in January, then now in July, 7 months after, against England. So coming against South Africa, saying that they are resting him, that argument would be flatly rejected by us and others that covers West Indies cricket. But I do take your point. The argument really, and the head coach did give a hint that bowlers would be rested, and the younger soft one they could go to is the vice captain. Maybe they want to remove him as vice captain, and the best way to do it was to say that they're resting him.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that part of it, because they've shown clearly that they like him in that position.
The old regime.
But you see, his performance since he's been elevated to the ranks of vice captain has suffered. And it came about the same time he got the IPL introduction. So the two things may or may not be related, but that's essentially what I foresaw. And so it's necessary, yes, to rest him because he's just not producing, as opposed to, not wanting to remove the captaincy from him. But as far as Chase is concerned, it would certainly be an idea to see if West Indies team can stand on their own 2 feet with, Brathwaite out of the picture. So let's start getting, do we say revolutionary, or let's start using a little bit more common sense. Let's do some more changes and see how this. We're building a team here, and if we're afraid to make the take the chances, then we're not going to get very far. That's how I see it, Mr. Conley.
Absolutely. We'll be back on Tuesday morning with continued thoughts on this team that is selected, and also more on what we expect in the first test from the West Indies and the following days thereafter. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Dennis Heath, also Hall of Famer John Melbourne, and Honorary Secretary of the Cricket Hall of Fame, Mr. Dale Brown. He's also a consultant with us here at West Indies Cricket Development Academy. Thank you, viewers and watchers from all over the world that tune in today with us as we reveal to you the squad that will take on South Africa and discussions on it thereof. We'll be back Tuesday morning, and we hope that you will join us then. From all of us here at the Caribbean Cricket Show, hosted by West Indies Cricket Development Academy. Thank you for joining, and goodbye for now.
Our hearts beat
Bye.
to the city streets. We began to feel the fire.